Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Postman live stream. My name is Joyce. I'm a developer advocate based here in San Francisco, and we have a special guest today, Nick.
Hey there, this is Nick Tran, also based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Happy to be on this Twitch stream.
You're Bay Area, but you're East Bay, right?
I am the East Bay, yes.
So that's basically a different city.
Different country.
It's a different continent. It's across the bay. So today we have actually a lot to cover. We're going to be exploring the Zoom API. Nick, have you ever worked with the Zoom API?
I have not worked with a Zoom API. Looking forward to working with it though. I know we've been chatting a lot about how can we use more APIs to gain visibility into how our systems operate and how our programs fare. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Zoom has a user interface or like a web version, so you can actually do some stuff, in Zoom, in the website. But what are the differences between what the API can help you do versus the GUI? So we'll find out. And before we get started, I'd like to talk about some new things that came out. So let's switch over to, in case you missed it. So you might or might not be seeing my screen. Actually, so we have Nick as a special guest today, but Arlemy, once again, is still in the background. He's actually broadcasting this stream from London. So thank you very much, Arlemy, and please share my screen. So hopefully you see my screen. I'm up on the community forum. It's community.postman.com, and Arlemy did this one. We're talking about Arlemy, even though he's here, but not here in person. So if you go to Postman News, we had what's new in Postman 7.25, and look at all the stuff that is out. So one of the new things in version 7.25 is role-based access control for environments. And Nick, you and I, we're actually going to be working in the same workspace, and we'll be sharing the collection. So if you run into issues, I can pop in and update your collection. And now we have that for environments where in the past, if you shared an environment with your team member, they would be able to collaborate, but now you are able to kind of put the kibosh on it. If you want to lock down your environment so that I can't update it, then you can do that now. So that's exciting. New parameters for notifications in Arlemy. I've told you this so many times, but I love how you put these little GIFs in because I don't have to switch over. In fact, can you see that? This is exactly what was released. It's being able to retry a monitor, and I don't think we've talked about monitors at all yet in the live stream. We should schedule that for another topic. But being able to retry a monitor if it fails, and setting the parameters around that. Let's see what else we got.
And so, sorry to interject.
Yeah.
How often do monitors fail? Why would they fail?
So it's similar to a monitor is just a scheduled collection run in Postman. So if I schedule a bunch of requests to run in waterfall order or to create a whole test suite around it, if I don't get back the response that I'm expecting, then Postman will now retry that whole monitor run. Yeah. So that's a failed monitor run, not the monitor returns failures on your endpoints because your expected behavior was different. So a lot of stuff here. I won't go over it all because we have a lot to get through, but this last one, infinite zoom. If I just scroll down, it's hilarious what we have. You're able to zoom in so close. This is going to be I'm just going to navigate Postman like this. Let me switch over to Postman. I'll show you what that looks like. So here I am in Postman. Boing, 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 boing.
So that's what I was doing before, right? In the prep for this, Control plus to zoom to my desktop. Cool.
Yeah, but now you can go in a lot further. It's enhance, enhance, enhance.
And could you go back out minus?
Yeah, let's see how great awesome. That looks. You guys see that? This is how we're doing the rest of the stream. Welcome, people in the chat. Who's the new guy? I don't know, Michael Bettendorf. I don't know, just some Yahoo that has a rooster hat that decided to come onto this stream.
This is my chicken hat from Hawaii.
Oh, chicken hat. Okay. So let's see. that's on In Case You Missed It. I will drop a link to this beautiful article that Arlemy wrote. Again, lots of new stuff coming out of Postman and Arlemy. I love working with Arlemy. He's spoon feeding me what's new in these releases, even talking about the why you'd care about it and that kind of stuff. So we'll drop that link in the chat, but that's In Case You Missed It. So what are we doing today?
A question about this, like how is this different from our release notes today?
How is what Arlemy wrote?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go to, there's a couple different ways, and we've talked about this before, but let me go to Postman. If you go to the settings, this French icon, and go to release notes, these are, a bulleted list. And in fact, if there's like bugs, it'll actually link to those bugs and those feature requests. So it's a very bulleted, digestible link, but not everyone has the context for like, what is it and what is it good for? And so Arlemy is actually being a little bit more user-friendly and explaining it in like lay terms.
Awesome.
Yeah. Arlemy, you deserve a raise. Okay. So let us go ahead and okay, so Arlemy has kindly posted a link to that What's New in Postman. So that's just in case you missed it. But today, Nick, you'd wanted to work a little bit with the Zoom API. Can you tell me what you were hoping to get out of it?
Yeah, I was hoping to see if we could. So today, like, I would ask one of our marketing managers, like, what's the current registration of the webinar in market? And so I would ping her on Slack, and she'll respond, as quickly as she can. And I would do that like every couple of days, and it starts to. I think I'm starting to annoy her because like she's become my API. So rather than having me ping a human being, wouldn't it be great if I could just ping the API to get the number of registrants back?
Yeah, so your alternatives, Nick, it sounds like your pain point. An API evangelist is saying that he did that to me for Eventbrite. He asks a lot of questions. So you're kind of like the shot caller, right? You're the shot caller and you're like, I need registration, stat. I need Eventbrite, like whatever, stat. And your alternatives are to ask somebody, right? So for webinars, you ask Nikita and you're like, Nikita, how many registrations do we have for this blah, blah, blah webinar? Your alternatives are to log into Zoom, like log into a website.
Yeah, and then for a lot of reasons, she won't give me the credentials to log in.
Oh, so like she needs to grant you special permissions to see this information.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can use an API and see if that's the case, if you're not able to see information on the dashboard, I suspect you should not be able to access it by API because that's only good security practices. Yeah. And Zoom is known for good security
practices. I think what it is she doesn't want me to start up a Zoom webinar on like my arrow garden in the background here.
I would attend. Some of those, we could do a time-lapse webinar or just peacefully watch your arrow garden.
That would be the longest webinar ever, I swear.
Rack up the follows.
Or we could do it on Twitch.
Okay, well, let's experiment with that. It's called A/B testing in marketing. We can see what performs better. So let's go ahead and switch over to Nick. Are you ready for this? You ready to explore the Zoom API?
I'm rolling up my sleeves. Actually, I don't have sleeves on, but I would.
Okay, let's go ahead and share your screen then.
Okay. All right.
And, you're a busy person. We have not had a chance to, make sure that you have the right permissions and scopes for some of this stuff. So we'll just see how far we get. And in fact, I really like this type of stream, and we'll see how this goes. I think I'd like to make a special segment where, like on Twitch, a lot of times people that are brand new to like a piece of technology or brand new to APIs or something are exploring, and you get a sense of nostalgia being like, I remember when I first opened Postman, or haha, look, Nick doesn't know where to find blank, right? So like, it's just kind of a cool thing to watch. We're not making fun of you, Nick. It's just kind of
cool to be the guinea pig anytime.
So I think we actually have a lot of people that work at Postman and people that I come across in the community that are just getting started with APIs. So many people in all sorts of different functions. So yes, you will be our guinea pig.
And plus, I think I just learn best by doing, and I encourage everyone else that's on the line. But you can only learn so much by reading and scanning and watching videos. But for me, like just doing is the best way of like just kind of absorbing all the stuff, information myself.
And I've worked with you before, Nick, and that's why we're going to work off of your computer so that you stay engaged in this discussion. So are you sharing your screen or am I just not?
Am I sharing my screen?
You need to do it in Skype.
Okay.
How come I can't see it? Oh, Skype problems. We're using Skype to stream about Zoom.
Okay. I gotta say, Skype is great technology, but the UI still could use some improvements.
I love Skype. I love LAMP. All right, let's do it. What are we gonna do? What do you expect us to do? How do we get started with the Zoom API, Nick?
So I would expect by going to the Zoom documentation. So I think this is the reason why you had me open up my browser previously.
Yeah.
So I logged in. So I guess this is my account. You can see I have a bunch of Zoom calls coming up.
Yep.
I think we had a tab open for documentation. So
yeah.
First.
I actually asked you to Google Postman and Zoom. So there's a couple ways you can get started. One is to look inside our API network to see if Zoom has documentation in the API network. We've done that several times before. The other way you can do stuff is to Google. I actually wasn't able to navigate to Zoom's API documentation from their login portal, but yeah, Google, go ahead and navigate there.
Okay.
So this appears to be a guide that tells you how to get started with the Zoom API. If you're working with Zoom chatbots, it looks like they have a Run in Postman button. That's that orange button there.
Yeah. We're not doing that today, are we?
We're not doing chatbots today. I don't even know what a Zoom chatbot is. Is that just like replying?
I don't think I've ever seen it.
I have my own name today. I am not Kevin. The chatbots, I haven't seen those in Zoom either, but maybe that's why some people can put emojis.
Invite, our friends at Zoom to come and maybe demo that for us sometime.
Yeah, I think we know some of the people over at Zoom.
Shout out to Benjamin Dean.
What if Benjamin Dean? If anybody from Zoom is watching this, please help us because I had trouble with their API.
Hopefully I wouldn't have any trouble whatsoever, right?
No, this is going to be a breeze. This is very unrehearsed, organic. Nothing bad is going to happen. Okay.
Okay, I'm like ready to get going here.
Okay, let's get going. So under My Apps in the header.
Okay.
It looks like you've activated one app, JSON Web Token app. Go ahead and click on that. Yeah, go ahead and click on that.
We need to put up the blast shields or no?
I'm not sure.
When we talk about the blast shield, it's us shielding your eyes from our API keys and credentials.
Shielding your eyes from these ugly credentials. Yeah, go ahead and click that.
Okay, blast shields up. Oh, actually, we're fine. Okay. I see here that this is pinned to your name, to your email address.
Yeah, I created this the other day. So this is why you see it, because it's an account level. You can see the label up at the top. It's an account level app.
Oh, okay. And so everybody shares the same API. Everybody within that same Zoom account.
Yeah, so what this is an app that uses the API. It's unfortunately called API, but it's actually an app. Okay. Are you able to edit that? You can take that little API off if you're able to edit in the app name down below.
Here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Done.
All right, so it's saved. If the secret shield is up, then we can go see the credentials.
Okay. Are you ready for this? Let me click continue. Oh, no, it's actually saved.
Yeah, so today we are exploring the Zoom API. Nick is my boss. He wanted me to do a live stream with him, and I was like, okay, so what do you want to do? And so Nick is the VP of marketing. He doesn't work in Postman every day. It's a really good opportunity to show somebody who doesn't work with APIs every day how you can go about exploring an API. What is an API good for? So we are just now looking at a Zoom demo app, and secret shields are probably up. And we're about to reveal these app credentials. So go ahead and click on that, Nick.
Here we go.
Let me just narrate to the people since it's behind a blast shield. You see an API key, secret, and there's also a JSON web token. So this is the stuff that we'll need. So go ahead and navigate away from this. So go to information.
Okay.
Okay, and now secret shield's down. Or what'd you call it, Nick? Blast shield's down. Okay, so let's go over to Postman. Postman.
Here we go. Let's slide this to the right.
Top of the morning, Nick. Okay. So, Nick, you and I are both inside this Twitch workspace. At the top left, you can see that you're in this team workspace. So the Twitch, if you click that drop down, yep, we're both in Twitch. And in fact, I just clicked into this workspace on my machine. So now my avatar, which is a picture of Lucy, has lightened up right there. Yep, I'm here. So don't worry, we could do this together. The first thing that we're going to need to do is to pull in some collection. We already saw one collection that Zoom had. We need to be able to pull in their API documentation of their API so that we can work with it in Postman. And then we have secrets. And what is the best way to handle our secrets, Nick or chat? Should we hard code those secrets into the collection?
Probably not a good idea.
Probably not a good idea.
If you can maybe abstract them into variables.
Yes.
Of sorts.
Yeah, we can use variables, and there's a ton of different variables. Yes, Mr. Plow, variables. Yes, Nick, variables. Yeah, Cliff, yes, hard code and put them in plain text. No, that's not a best practice. So we are going to use variables. And in fact, I think we'll use an environment variable today because it just makes it easy in the UI to kind of see and share. And as we talked about, in case you missed it, we have new role-based access permissions for environments now. So let's go ahead and go back to your browser and let's look for a Postman collection in Zoom. So probably Google. I found one through Googling, but I can't remember how I got there.
Ooh. What? My keyboard was focused on this, and I accidentally opened. Oh, going back to the browser.
Yeah.
So looking for the Postman Zoom collection?
Yeah. Yep.
So Joyce, tell me what a collection is.
Should I ask you what a collection is?
I've heard like many different definitions of collections, and I can make an attempt. But I'd love to hear from you, Joyce.
Yeah.
Because you work with this all the time.
You're absolutely right. So collection means different things to different people. So what we're looking for here is a folder of the Zoom API So we're looking for a folder of requests, just some documentation that Zoom has created that allows us to pull it in and easily work with it.
So you mentioned Zoom documentation. It's more than just the documentation though that's in the collection.
Yeah, it's everything that you need to interact with the API, everything except for the keys. Yeah, so it's another definition of a collection is that it's an executable format I feel like we're getting a little philosophical here. We have a couple questions in the chat. RBAC for environments is such a boring sounded feature, correct? What does it mean for me that I'm excited about it? Kevin Swiber, it means that if I'm collaborating with Nick and I don't trust Nick not to override my keys and some information, then I can say, Nick, you only have view permissions for my environment, not edit. So it allows me to have finer grading control over who else can mess with my stuff. Silly question, any reason you'd put them in the environment variables instead of at the collection level? Couple pros and cons. Nick said variable. That's a perfectly acceptable answer because in Postman, and in fact, Nick, if you navigate over to Postman again, let's take a look at the different variable types. Go to the eyeball. Yeah, so you see you have environment variables, you have global variables, 11 volar. I don't read LEET, but you asked about collection variables. So collection variables, typically in environment, you pair a collection with an environment, and together they go along and live together. But a collection variable, you can embed a variable in the collection. It's not as easy to see because you can use the eyeball to see environment and globals, but collection, you have to actually go over to API Learner in the left and find the 3 dots to the right side of the name. You don't have, see, this is role-based access control. We don't trust Nick to work on API Learner, so he can't edit it. Find one without a lock. Yeah, any of those without a lock.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. Go to edit and tab over to variables. Yeah, so these are collection level variables. A little bit harder to navigate to, a little bit harder to see in the UI, but it functions exactly the same. So many pros and cons for different types. Hi, Turk. Okay, I don't know what Viv means. All right, are you ready to find an open API specification file that contains all of the, let me Google on my screen because I found it before, but I'm not Googling properly. So I'm going to Google. Pardon?
What are you looking for?
An open API specification file. Do you want to Google that?
Oh, you want
it's taking me to the same spot.
Okay. What do you want me to search for?
Here we go. Okay. So Google Zoom, Postman, and then all one word, open API. And then go to that second set. Yep. Okay, so Zoom has another guide here that shows you how to use Postman to test Zoom APIs. And if you go ahead and copy that link to your clipboard.
Okay.
Let's go back over to Postman. And this is a really good tutorial. They use those screenshots very helpfully. So go ahead and click at the top left, click import. So what we're doing here is we're importing a link.
Okay.
And
paste it in.
Zoom is using a specification format called Open API. It looks like version 2. I'm looking, I like the side-by-side, Nick. Go ahead and continue and pull that in. We're pulling it in from a URL. Go ahead and you can kind of see we'll import it as an API as well as a collection. And yes, it's Swagger 2.0, otherwise known as Open API version 2. So some import settings, but go ahead and click import.
Yeah. Why do we continue to refer to it as Swagger?
It was called Swagger back in 1.0 days and then in 2.0 days. And in fact, sometimes people call it Swagger 2.0, but it went through a rebranding. It's a marketing thing.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
No. Actually, if API Evangelist is on, I think he's on the board or like the committee that like does open API stuff. Go ahead and pull it in.
I'm just checking through all the different toggles here. Okay. Importing.
Import. Okay, so this one is actually kind of a big file, but it looks like the schema successfully imported its API and the collection imported. So this is the file that you just pulled in. So go ahead and make your Postman a little bit wider, please.
Why does it say deleted?
Deleted. Go ahead and make it wider. And then click on, in the collections tab, go ahead and find, you can actually close that tab if you want.
The deleted tab.
Yeah.
Since this API has been
Oh,
deleted.
you know what's, I think your icon was spinning, so we might have some connectivity issues. So go
Okay.
ahead and close that. And then find some, yeah, there it is. Go ahead and put a star on it and bring it to the top.
Oh, I didn't know about the star.
Yeah, I love the star because like look at how junky this sidebar is. Okay, so there's 300 requests in here. Postman
Wow.
has imported the Open API version 2 spec and transformed it into a collection, as well as the API spec that you saw on the earlier tab that you just closed.
Yeah. Here's a chat API too that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, you want to build something with chat?
Not until I know what the chat.
Okay.
Let's stay focused on the first use case.
Yeah, so there's like a ton of stuff that you can just do here by exploring these folders, by exploring the Zoom API documentation. What do you think we want to check out?
Webinars. Are we going to actually pull live data? We can pull live data.
Yeah,
Do
we
you
are.
want to look at, so I know that Arlemy did a Postman 101 webinar yesterday. So I would assume that would be under past webinars.
Yeah, so we can either pull real webinars and put up Secret Shield to protect the privacy of the people that registered, or we can use a dummy webinar that we have a couple dummy webinars.
Why don't we just do a count to start?
Yeah. So I would love if a Zoom API returned a count, but there's no API here. There's no endpoint here called Nick's special request to return count of webinars for his single use. So we're actually going to have to use multiple APIs to accomplish what we want.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and expand some of those webinars. I don't actually know what we need. Expand some of those folders, and then if you click on the request, it'll load it up. So maybe, is there one that says like get webinar or get all webinars?
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, so there's one, expand it again. The one that you just had open, webinars/webinar ID. Yeah, it's kind of confusing here, just the way the folders and requests are. But if you click on get a webinar. Okay, so now we've loaded up this request. That's a get request to that base URL. Do you want to hover over that base URL in orange?
Yep.
Yeah, so somebody had a question about collection. Look, this one is a collection level variable, which is the base URL for this API. It looks like we're looking under the params.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted.
Okay, you...
Go away. Hey, I'll chat with you in 30 minutes, okay?
Nick, we should get your kid up here. He's probably going to be like a whiz at APIs.
Yeah, my kids are actually starting to use Postman. Well, at least the oldest one.
Hey, Chikaros.
Right. So what were we looking for? So the base URL and then the param.
Something I love about watching people play Minecraft for the first time is watching their reactions. So Nick, tell us your reactions.
Reaction to
what are you looking at here?
I am looking at, I believe, the endpoint for the Zoom API. Looks like it's V2. I believe this interface is going to allow me to make a request to this a URL, and looking for some parameters, I believe, like webinar ID, and I don't know what the occurrence ID is. Oh, there's a description of each of these. I think they're called keys, query parameter keys, unique identifier that. Wow, I'm surprised that all this information is here.
Yeah. So what will we need to get this request to work? And we had a question. It's mostly for the beginners. Is there anything advanced sometimes? So today we're actually just exploring an API, getting a feel for how APIs work, specifically the Zoom API. So what would you do here, Nick? What would you do if you came here and you're like...
Watch the live stream.
Yes. My kid's gone now.
I bet your kid can like get through this API documentation.
All right.
So what are we doing? How would you get this to work?
Give me a hint. I think I need to get some tokens.
Yeah. So let's go under auth. So there's a green dot under that auth tab, and it's actually talking about OAuth 2.0. I think the website that we actually have open on the right, we're actually going to be using JSON Web Tokens. So go ahead and under the OAuth 2.0 dropdown where it says type,
Yep.
go ahead and say inherit. Okay, actually, let's go to the collection level, see if they set some parent level auth. So the authorization helper is something that Postman does to encapsulate the authentication process. So go ahead to the three dots and hit edit. And then under the authorization tab, it looks like there's no auth. Oh dear, this is very different than the, okay, no problem. So what we want to do is, oh wait, before you, okay.
Yeah,
so go back. So there's a few different ways to authenticate a Zoom API. It looks like we could do OAuth 2.0. It looks like there's JSON Web Token. Go ahead and select bearer token.
This one.
Yes. So we need a token, and we do have a JSON Web Token that we saw in the secret under the secret shield. Go ahead and do double curly braces here in the token. This is where we can hard code our token once we, or we could just write in like JWT. So in Dutch, it would be JWT, but in English, you would type in JWT and then close the double curly braces. Yeah, so hover over that now with your cursor. Okay, so you created a variable called JSON Web Token, but you haven't actually poked in any value yet. So let's go ahead and create an environment.
Do I need to click update?
Yeah, go ahead and click update to save your changes.
Do you normally go and do that here first, or do you go to the environment section and create the variable first? Or is this just a style thing?
It's however you want to do it. You can initialize a variable that is, and then actually poke in a value. But since we already had this window open, I'm going to go ahead and say, we're going to set a collection level off. The type is bearer token. And we're going to poke in a token called undefined JWT right now.
All right. Update.
Okay. So now we need to create an environment to store that token.
Go back to the I.
Yeah.
Right.
So we don't have an environment yet. We're going to have to add one. And you can call this like Zoom. And then the variable name, if you'll recall, was JWT. Yep. So we need that token.
Okay.
Do you remember where we saw that token?
Yes, on the Zoom account.
Yes. So we're going to need a secret shield as soon as you navigate to that general page. Yeah, secret shield, please.
Arlemy, you got it? All right.
Okay, so go ahead and copy your JSON Web Token to your clipboard. And then keep the secret shield up. We're going to switch over to Postman, and you're going to paste it in, put it in current value.
What's the difference between initial and current?
So initial value, since we're in a team workspace, I'll be able to see. Current value, I will not be able to see. So you're welcome to share your JSON Web Token. Typically, your team decides whether or not you want to share credentials or not.
Got it.
So go ahead and hit add and X out of here. So actually, we need to navigate away from your token on the Zoom side. Yeah. So maybe just click over to info. Oh, I think we're going to need a lot more information. Actually, I don't know. Anyone know JSON Web Token? Hi, Wilva. Joyce is the best. Joyce deserves a raise.
Totally.
Okay. So we need to click on information on the left just to hide our tokens. That's the only reason why we're doing it. So just click the one above it, information. Now we can take down our secret shield.
I'm just...
You want to stop doing that?
Sorry. All right. Now you can do it, Arlemy.
Okay. So
As
back
you
to
can tell,
post.
this is totally unrehearsed.
Ooh, so we had a random question. Go ahead and close this modal. We had a random question here. So
I need to add the environment though, right? No, I'm done.
Yep.
Okay.
So you created the environment. Now you need to select the environment from that drop down. So where it says at the very top right, no environment.
Oh.
Yeah, so now select your new environment. Don't, okay, be careful now. Otherwise you're gonna expose your secrets, which we do at least once every live stream, so don't worry if you do. Okay, so now we're on Get a Webinar, and we have OAuth 2 selected under authorization, but we already set that type at the parent level, which is the folder, which is the collection. So go ahead and select Inherit Auth from Parent.
Oh, okay. I was gonna select bearer token, but this this makes a lot more sense if it's already defined.
Yeah. And in fact, you could totally select bearer token, but then you'd have to do it 300 times for all 300 requests.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very nifty.
Oh. The chat is hilarious. Okay. What are we doing? So we just set the authorization up at the collection level. We have it at the request level. What do you suppose we should do now? Do you want to see if this works?
I want to test it.
Okay.
But don't I need to know what webinar?
Yeah. Yeah, you do. So click over to params.
Okay.
So the colon webinar ID, colon syntax means that it's a path variable. Right now, it just has a placeholder that's like angle bracket long. But we need to get some value there. So go ahead and expand the Postman a little bit so that we can see the sidebar. Okay, so how do you think we would get the webinar ID?
I mean, I would love to see an API that would just give me back all the webinars and the webinar IDs.
Yeah, so let's look for one that says get all webinars or list webinars. Okay, so I don't see one right there under webinar/webinar ID. If you click under metrics and then click under webinars, go ahead and see if that one works. There's 2 list webinars and they do different things.
How would I know to do that?
So what you're doing is it's up to Zoom to organize these folders how they want. But how I found it when I was putzing around this morning is I use the little magnifying glass in the bottom left. If you click on that really quick.
Sorry, this one, yeah. Yeah,
that's a find. And what I did was I searched for finds, or like, sorry. Yeah, so this is going to return like a few different things, and I kind of like whittled it down, but it's almost like Googling. You're only as good as like what you can search by.
Right.
Yeah, but there's 10 results under just open tabs alone. There's 872 results for webinar under collections. So, I mean, you need to whittle it down. So what I did was I whittled it down to this particular collection, and then I did list webinars or all webinars or something like that.
I've never actually used this functionality. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this search is pretty, I mean, it's hidden down there in the bottom left, but especially if you use collections, if you use Postman Hardcore, it can really come in handy. This
is really cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little bit better if I put it in plural.
Do you want, I know how you can find it through search if you want to play around in the find.
How?
So right now you're searching everything under where?
Can I choose?
Yeah, choose entities and select collections. And then try
choose the specific collection. No?
Yeah. What's it called? Zoom API?
Yeah.
Yep. See if that works. Okay, so just 200. What is the endpoint that you wanted? You wanted
Just
list.
list.
Yeah, so put list webinars. Well, I put a space there. Okay, so now if you just kind of look, there's two results. One, you can see the breadcrumb is under Zoom API, metrics, webinars, get list webinars. And then there's another one under Zoom API, users, user ID, webinars. So one of these works and one of them doesn't. So let's just try one.
How did you know?
So they both probably work. One works with my permissions and one does not.
I have a quick question. How good are you with regex?
I'm as good as any other developer. I can use a regex simulator. I can Google it. Actually, some people are really good. I'm not at all.
Like, hats off to those people that are really good at regex. I can get complicated fast.
Do you want to try that? This is your stream, Nick.
Maybe not today. I think that's like a whole separate stream.
Comment in the chat if you want to see an entire stream on regex. Okay. So let's go ahead and try to list all of our webinars.
Okay. All right. Another request here, same base URL, bunch of query parameters. Oh, so I can specify the from and the to in terms of date and how many I can get back at any given time. And okay, so I guess I have to specify the date. Can I just type in here?
We probably don't need to filter it down. Let's just make sure we can get a response first.
Okay.
So one thing I know
we haven't done that many webinars.
Well, check out under the authorization tab. Let's just make sure we have that selected as inherit from auth from parent. Have we actually gotten a single request to work yet?
No.
It's 11:45. Let's step up the pace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm slowing you down.
No. I want you to be able to take something with you when you leave today.
I'm learning a whole lot already.
Yeah. Go ahead and hit send. Let's see if we have what we need.
Ready for this?
Probably not, but let's try.
I need more confidence.
Okay. So it looks like that's the wrong one. Let's go find the other list webinars. Do you remember where it was?
I thought it was like...
Oh, I remember. I think it's under users.
Users?
Yeah. So up.
Wasn't it under report? Does anybody remember?
I think it's under users because we're actually going to need your user ID or somebody's user ID too. Yeah, that one. I know.
This is not in alphabetical order. I was looking for users down here.
So it's not default alphabetical order. It's default however Zoom wants it to be. And in fact, Postman transformed it from an open API specification. So there's a little bit more transformation that occurs there too. So go under user ID. Go under webinars. Let's try this one. Do you remember what we did?
Authorization first, inherit auth from parent. Can we make this a default for everything? Or do you have to do that every single time?
Because it was manually selected as OAuth, you have to change it. But if it was from scratch, it would just inherit.
Yeah.
The default would be inherit.
Just maybe could we actually use the Postman API to update the whole collection?
Yeah, we could. We could edit JSON because that would be easier. Hey, click over on params. I want to see what params. Oops. Oh, it's okay. Okay. So go ahead and so we're getting a 404 not found. User does not exist because it's looking for angle bracket string. Okay. So now we know we need to create we need a user ID. So we're already under the users folder. Is there a request that says list all users or something like that?
I thought I saw that.
List users.
Okay.
Yes. Ooh, and the tabs are looking busy at the top. We're doing some real heavy lifting here. Okay, so what's the first?
Should I maximize my screen?
Sure.
I don't need the browser anymore, right?
Maybe. Okay. We haven't gotten a single request to work yet. So what was the first thing we needed to do?
It only took me 4 hours, or me and the API van just 4 hours to get the Eventbrite API working.
I mean, I think you're learning a lot of different... Okay, go ahead and hit send. Okay.
Oh, I forgot to do this.
Yep.
I'm learning from the best.
No, a lot of this is just muscle memory. Like, I always want to hit the blue button. Okay, so now go under params tab.
So total record 0.
Oh, you're literally getting no users back. I wonder if we gave you the right. First of all, I have 2 questions. I wonder if we're using the correct request, because we saw earlier that there's multiple. Secondly, I wonder if you have the correct permissions to even like access the users. You should have the same permissions that I do, but not sure. So what it says now is on row 6, users is returning an empty array.
Right.
We don't have any users.
Okay. Well, I was looking at this, number 5, total number of records, 0.
0, yeah. So we actually do have users. I'm wondering why we're getting 0. Let me just double check. I tried this out the other day. Yeah, list users. Under users, under webinar. Is there another list users request that you see?
Should we do a search?
Sure. List users. Okay, so look at the breadcrumb. Is that the one you were at?
Can't tell. I think so.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is...
Someone said in chat, the role ID looks like a placeholder. Should we deselect the role ID?
Heck yeah, try it. Thank you, chat.
Drag this down. Or I can just close this.
Oh!
Yes.
Okay. Yay, Ryman Topiano.
I think we should send each of them a t-shirt. Yeah.
Do we have t-shirts? Let's do it. Let's do it.
We're gonna get you both of you t-shirts.
How do you do that over? We need to get their contact information.
Yeah,
and then
send
we would dox them.
Send Joyce or me your email, and we'll get you t-shirts.
Yeah, we should have our Twitter things up here. So go ahead and tweet us. So okay, we can scroll through all the Postman employees exposing all of their private information, or we can just focus on the bottom, that body response. Do you see a find and magnifying glass in the right side?
The right side, yeah.
Okay, go ahead and find, let's look for Nikita, actually. So Nikita administrates most of our webinars, and so one of 2. So go ahead and copy. She's in Asia, Calcutta time zone.
That's her ID, right?
That's her ID. Go ahead and copy that to your clipboard.
Okay.
And so I asked you to copy it to your clipboard instead of programmatically setting it as a variable, but I don't want you to share your secrets and have to invoke Secret Shield. So I'm going to ask you to go under Tests tab in the request.
This one?
So no, that's, people get that confused all the time. Yep. So the response is on the bottom, the request is on top. So now we are going to write some code, Nick. And I know JavaScript isn't your jam. What language did you use to write back in the day?
Java.
Java. Okay, so JavaScript is a separate programming language. We will use JavaScript now to initialize. So remember when we went to eyeball and we updated a value there?
Yeah.
We're going to actually programmatically set it using JavaScript. So go ahead and type in pm.environment.set, open parentheses, user underscore ID in quotes. Surround that in quotes.
Okay. Double quotes or single quotes?
I think single quotes will work. Comma. And then we're going to hard code in. Go ahead and put quotes again. Surround that in quotes. Yeah. So all we're doing is hard coding it in just so we don't have to show you the secrets in eyeball. So go ahead and hit send. Okay, so we didn't get any errors. It works. Go ahead and comment that out. So under, yeah.
Right here?
Yep.
This?
Yep, perfect. Okay, so all we did was, fingers crossed, we've hard coded a value, but I don't want to show you eyeball because we have secrets in there. Now we have a user ID. Now let's go to list webinars. The right one, not the wrong one. Okay.
I think this is the right one.
I don't remember. So now under user ID.
Actually, this is the right one. The message down here says user doesn't exist.
So I'm going to ask you to type really fast because I'm pretty sure this. Oh, actually, no, go ahead. Yeah, type slowly. Type at your leisure. Double curly braces, user underscore.
Hey.
User. Yep. There you go. Okay. So that's Nikita's user ID. Go ahead and hit send.
And it's safe to user ID.
It is currently safe to user ID, but don't scroll maddeningly.
Here we go.
Okay, scroll slowly. Scroll slowly. Okay. I don't actually know what is terrible, but you can see there's something called test webinar.
Can I make this like screen bigger, or you don't want me to scroll down?
You can. So move your cursor to right next to the up slightly. Nope. Nope. To the left. Just on the white part.
Yes.
Yeah. Just highlight. Put your focus on the white part and then scroll.
Oh,
just slowly. Okay. You can navigate the cursor too. Okay. So we have an ID for this test webinar. Go ahead and do the same thing that we did so that we don't have to expose our secrets. Copy that to your clipboard.
Okay.
Under tests, we're going to go pm.environment.set. And we're only doing it this way, remember, because I don't want to show you the secrets under eyeball.
And so this is webinar ID?
Yes.
I think I'm getting the hang of this.
Yes.
So I'll run this.
You're running it to set it.
To set it. Okay. And then I'll comment it out.
Yes.
All right.
Somebody's typing Cyrillic, I think, in the chat. I don't know what that means. Or I don't want to.
I can't read it. Sorry. Someone do a Google Translate.
Wait, is that Arlemy? Oh, so somebody's asking what we're doing. So what we're doing is we're using a couple different APIs, Zoom APIs. So Zoom has an endpoint that allows us to list users. We got that user ID. Now we're listing the webinars to get a webinar ID. Now we're going to get a single webinar using that webinar ID. So let's go ahead and get a webinar.
Do I see Will V on the line here? Is that Will Vaughn? I think we need to get him on the stream at some point.
I assume that's Will. #1 trash talker. Okay, so what do we need to do to get this one to work?
Okay, so it looks like I need to find the webinar ID and find the one that I had specified in the environment. Oh, there we go. I love this auto completion.
Yeah, but it will show your secrets if you're not careful.
Okay.
Okay, and is authorization correct?
Nope, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It's good to double check, right? And then what's this? Unique identifier that identifies an occurrence of a recurring webinar.
Yeah, so last time we deselected something that we didn't need, but sometimes I think you can just submit junk and we won't get an error. So you can either unselect that or you can just hit send and see what happens.
Or should we ask the people in the chat what they think I should do?
Chat, what do we do with occurrence ID? Oh no, I'm gonna have to pee soon.
All right. I'm just going to go up.
Send it. Mr. Plow says send it.
Okay, this is, I guess we'll have to roll the dice, given that Vegas is shut down.
Okay. So go ahead and scroll down
This
there.
is promising.
Yeah, so here's all of our settings. We have a panelist video set to off. False. I think one time JP had his video on and we had a webinar and he was just watching. Okay, yeah, so these are all the settings for the webinar, this test webinar that we had. And now we want to get, what was your original question, Nick?
The count of all the people that registered.
Okay, so let's look for an endpoint in the sidebar for something about registrants.
I think I have to go back to that webinars.
Might be under webinars, yeah.
This one, probably.
Okay, let's try that.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Sounds like somebody's doing heavy exercise over there in the Tran household.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Get list webinar registrants. What do I need? The current ID. I think we proved that we didn't really need that. I assume we need to specify the webinar ID, which is going back to here, recalling the variable that we had set. And let's see, what else do I need? Okay, I think that's it. Probably need to set the authorization, right? How can I remember to always do this? Like, I almost forgot.
Well, I think you'll find out when you hit send.
Maybe. Yeah, I like to be proactive about make my API requests.
So the issue, unless you're working extensively with the Zoom API, there's so many parameters here, page size, are we paginating? We might actually need to for this registration. Okay. Actually, no, it's a test webinar, but go ahead and hit send.
0
registrants. So if you go to the Zoom dashboard, you can actually see that some dummy registrations, but for some reason the API is not returning it. And I'm not sure if that has to do with if you want to go, is there a dashboard somewhere in Zoom where you can take a look at your webinars?
I don't think I have permission for that.
Occurrence ID should probably, okay, let's try occurrence ID, disabling that. Oh my gosh, if that's it. No.
Same.
Mr. Plow, more help.
Or should we quickly go and look at another webinar that's not a test webinar?
Yeah, let's try that.
So go to list webinars.
Yes.
Let's scroll to, here's the enterprise e-commerce one that took place on April the 1st.
Okay.
So that's the ID.
Yep.
Go get sorry, what do I have to do? Yeah, I have to set this environment.
Yep.
Variable, click send, comment this back out, and then I think I just need to go back here though and run it. Hey,
okay.
Look at that.
Be careful. So don't scroll too fast. That first one is internal, so you can scroll past Andy's. You can see that we got 20,000 people registered for this webinar called something about APIs. And the first one is an internal person, but Nick, this
is going to list the first 30.
Yes, because page size
is 30.
At 30. So don't do this, but we could change page number to 2 and then see the next 30.
You don't want me to do that?
No, because those will be real people's information.
Well,
it's up to you.
Can I just scroll? Can I move this up a little bit to not show?
Here, do you want to turn Secret Shield on and then you and I can take a look at people's personal data but not share it with everyone else?
I think we're fine. We don't need to go further.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
I didn't mean to say that it's fine that we show people's personal data. I think we're fine and that we can stop here.
So this is really interesting. And in fact, it's slightly frustrating to read because you're only going like a few rows. Can you move your cursor to that white space again, between just like slightly above, to the right?
How do I get rid of this?
It's hard to tell somebody where to scroll.
Okay.
Okay, stop your cursor right there.
Yeah.
Now scroll slowly. Okay, yeah, stop. Okay, you're okay. I'm worried that you're going to reveal somebody's information, but you can see that the response here, we are listing registrants for this particular webinar with this webinar ID. You can see the total records, and you don't care about the registrants. We don't actually have to paginate. You care about the total records for your question, right?
It's this number.
Yeah. So for each webinar, let's just pseudocode in our minds, how would we build what you want? To answer your question of, I always want to know how many registrations I have for a particular webinar. What is the process that you would walk through?
Sorry, you're asking me.
Yeah. So let's just talk through. So we're at the top of our hour. We can either proceed for the next few minutes and try to build something, or let's just pseudocode what we would go about building so that we can answer your question of how many registrations do you have.
So it looks like I know the API request I need to make, and it's this, right? And so I would assume that I would write some code hitting this API. I get this JSON back, and then I retrieve the number, sorry, the value for the key total records.
Yes. So we could create a separate collection that's called Nick's Special Collection to get registrations or whatever. And we would duplicate these requests so that it can execute that code for us. So for total records, what I would ask you to do is to go under that tests tab again. Let's go ahead and parse this response. So previously we did pm.environment.set to set an environment.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and capture the response by using pm.response.json, open and close. Yep. So this is going to represent the response here as JSON, which we can see with our eyeballs in the bottom half of the page. It's
Dumb
JSON.
question. What does PM stand for?
It's the pm.star API, not a REST API, but like a software API. So it's the Postman function. It's a special object that gives you all this cool stuff. So pm.environment, pm.response, pm.request if we want to. A lot of cool things. And in fact, does this chatbot work? Yes. Oh, my first chat box in the Twitter. Or in the Twitch. There's the documentation. We can actually go to the sandbox documentation to take a look at it if you'd like.
No, I think we can do that another time.
I'll be your documentation for now.
Yeah.
So go ahead and at the beginning of that row,
Yeah.
initialize a variable. So let res, total equals records equal. So total records is actually going to be that entire response. So if after the parentheses.
Are we getting the whole response and then parsing, or are we getting one?
We could do either.
Value? Let's do that one key value. Okay, so
after the parentheses.
Yep.
You'll go dot. And then the total records. Yeah. Hey, look at that. Monaco autocomplete. It's so pretty.
How did I select it? Just press enter?
Shift or yeah.
Very nice.
Okay, so that's total records, theoretically. We don't know if it works yet. But now we can go ahead and print to the console. So on the next row, we had a question. Isn't it better to use global variables for temporary variables that could vary from request to request? So global variables live at the workspace level. So you can set them, but then you'll be polluting your global workspace. So you'll need to essentially tear it down or clear it at the end. You can use local variables, which is like pm.variables.set, that lives throughout the request or throughout a collection run. But in this case, we're just using like a super local variable, like in the script. So all I want to do here is like log something to the console to see if we can parse that information. So on row 2, let's go ahead and do console.log.
What is this autocomplete?
Are we doing it wrong? Log.
Shouldn't it's interesting that the like the key values or these variables autocomplete, but the functions don't autocomplete.
Yeah.
Are we doing something wrong?
Potential. So I think
it's not available yet.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and type console.log, open parentheses, total records, just as the value, not a string. Yep. Perfect. Okay. So go ahead and run this request.
I don't need semicolons.
Oh, don't get us started. Actually, yeah, go ahead and put some semis on there. I like semis. Okay. Hit send. And now if you go to the bottom left corner and click on that console icon in the very, very bottom left corner to the right there. Yep. Open that. Doodle-doo-doo-doo. Scroll down.
Yay!
Yay!
I can't believe I did it.
You did it! So you did it. You set a local variable in this case, but if you wanted to save it as an environment variable, because we're already using an environment, you can, and then you could pipe it through to Slack. So the issue here is that you're coming into Postman to push a button to use an API.
Right.
So what we were talking about earlier is we could build a collection to do this kind of thing, and then you can either schedule it to run on a monitor to kind of notify you of this information, or we can set up, we used webhooks like 2 weeks in a row, I think.
Sounds
webhooks.
like a separate episode.
yeah, for sure. We're not doing that today. But yeah. I can't, Nick, you got so far. You
and it didn't take 4 hours.
I mean, there's so many, like, and the other thing is that JSON Web Token is going to expire in 90 minutes. So they have a whole nother way of authorizing. They have many different ways of authorizing, OAuth 2.0. And so there's a lot more that we can explore here. But in the remaining time that we have for this project, is there anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to get to?
No, this is like the main thing here. This is awesome. And again, it didn't take 4 hours to do.
Well, I think you were working with Salesforce APIs instead of Zoom APIs, so.
Zing. No, I think it was because I was working with either the Eventbrite API or API Evangelist. I can't tell.
Well, like a lot of people have opinions about what APIs are easy to work with and what's not. And so the documentation, Postman, we know this, documentation is so important in helping people get unstuck and even discovering, like, look at these 300 requests on this left sidebar here. Like, how do we find list webinars? There's 2 identical requests called list webinars. One works and one doesn't. So it's just like really interesting how different APIs choose to document and gain other people's adoption.
Yeah, I think the thing that also really helped with this working with this API was the find. Like, I never used it, and it was so fun knowing that I can easily go search for things that calls that I potentially could leverage for what I needed to do. I thought that was really, again, very, very helpful.
Yeah, and Postman team, we use Postman very heavily, so there's so many collections, and being able to find something a little bit more efficiently is helpful. So we have some questions here. He did it. I don't know what these emojis are.
I don't think I could have done it without you, frankly.
I mean, it took a village. You saw people like helping us with occurrence ID or role ID, I think it was.
Yeah.
So list webinar users has a param for the status defaulted to accepted or confirmed? Can Postman run multiple requests, one for each status, for example, and aggregate the results in a single view? Okay, so that's a really good question. Oh my gosh, there's too much happening in chat. But let's just navigate really quickly over to list webinar, the single one.
This one.
Yeah, and go to params tab. So I think, is that the one we're talking about? Status. I don't see status on here. Am I high?
Is
oh,
it
the other one.
Users.
We're on the wrong one.
List users?
Yeah, go to param list. Oh no, list webinars, that one, yeah. And go to params tab.
Yep.
Am I high?
List.
Okay, so let's just talk through. Just put in the word
List
there.
webinar users.
List users. Go to
This one right here.
one. Okay, so is this the one? Okay, so we can just talk about this. So this API happens to accept a parameter called status that can either be approved, pending, or some other stuff, right? And so the question is, can we retrieve the approved data and then also retrieve the pending data and then put it together as one? So do you know how we would do that?
You're asking me?
Yeah, I think you have all the tools that you need. Well, let's just talk through it. So we update the parameter and we get something back in the bottom.
Yeah.
And we can save that as an environment or whatever kind of variable, right?
Right.
We can then call that same request again, either by duplicating that request and changing that parameter.
And then you would create some sort of script, write some sort of script to combine the response.
Yeah, so you can either have two requests and then change that parameter maybe, or save that environment variable information, or you can actually mutate. You can mutate the current environment that's being, the current request that's being sent, and you can use a different Postman sandbox function called postman.setNextRequest to call itself. So if there was 5 different statuses, you could mutate the same request and then call itself, and then mutate, call itself. And then you just update the object or whatever view that you want to output at the very end. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is if you had 5 statuses, just create 5 requests that all say a different parameter and then just aggregate it the same way.
Would you create another collection to aggregate them?
Yeah. So the way that we're using this collection right now, this is Zoom's API reference. It's 300 requests. We're only like piddling around with 5 of them right here. But for Nick's special registration dashboard, create that as a collection. So this is API reference, but you actually want a different kind of workflow, right?
Right.
So you can either create a folder that runs in this big, gigantic 300 request collection, or you can just create. Yeah. So there's a bunch of ways to skin this cat, from how you run these requests to how you structure your collections, and the world's really your oyster. All right. Nick, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or get done with this particular project before we move on to community shoutouts?
No, I think this is exactly what I was looking for. And before we go to community shoutout, can we give Joyce a round of applause here for walking me through the Zoom API? I mean, again, 4 hours versus 1 hour, that was super helpful. Thank you.
Well, that's a function of the documentation and the API, we could have gotten stuck early on. And then it's like any developer knows, anybody working with API knows, you can get stuck at there's all these pitfalls. So it's really by chance.
Yes,
Yay.
Joyce rocks.
Okay, so I have one more final question for you, Nick.
I thought I was going to be the one asking you a bunch of questions.
Now that you know how the Zoom API works, and knowing that you're a very, very busy person, are you going to ask Nikita to build you this collection, or are you going to build this collection?
I'm gonna do it myself. I mean, it was pretty easy to do. I think I could do it probably within 15 minutes myself. Like you said, I think the more that you do it, like the more like muscle memory you build. You just got to be in it like day in day out to like really get the hang of it.
Agreed. The send button is muscle memory, checking the authorization, checking every tab that has something green, which means like, hey, look under me. I have something under params. I have something under headers. It's getting familiar with the layout and knowing where to go. Even the console, a lot of people don't know about the console, gives you a lot of visibility. So kudos, Nick. You did it. I wasn't sure you would make it. I thought you were getting cold feet.
Come on, Joyce. Hey, there's a question from API Evangelist here. What was the hardest part? I didn't think any of it was like particularly difficult. I wish I knew like the PM calls a little bit better, so that like that part. I think I could probably use maybe a separate tutorial on.
Yeah, the PM docs are actually pretty good. And I personally use like 5 PM functions all day. And then there's all these other ones that if I know that it exists, then I can go looking for how to get it done.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay, so the very last thing I do want to talk about is next week. I think we have a special guest. Arlemy has a special guest, and he's going to be talking about gaming, specifically working with APIs in gaming, along with, I won't announce who our special guest is, but we do have a special external guest next week. So that's going to be very, very exciting. And the other thing is we've been streaming about like every week on Thursdays. We're going to start doing at least once a month, Tuesday office hours. So if you have homework questions or you're working on like, say you're Zoom and you're like, I don't know how to do this in Postman, or is there a better way to do this kind of thing? You can bring your questions to Arlemy and I, or Arlemy and me. I don't know what's grammar, but we're going to have open office hours. So you can just ask us your questions. If you're like, hey, you guys have never showed us monitors, please show us how that works. And I'm stuck on a monitor or like debugging, we'll be here for that. So that is the community shout out. And the community shout out is actually for Arlemy because he gave a huge webinar. Arlemy's still here lurking somewhere in the background, but he gave a huge Postman 101 webinar where he introduced some people that were new and just kind of showed them the tips and tricks. So I think they're going to be forming a community or something. Arlemy, if they have some website or some like Slack group or something like that, go ahead and post it in the chat. But otherwise, part of why I like doing Twitch is because you guys get to talk to each other and meet each other. So that's all I had.
All right.
Thanks,
Joyce.
Say goodbye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.